So I've already started taking this apart. Took a few screws out of here, just out of the trim. Now I'm gonna pop that strut off just to get this plastic piece out of the way, and then I'll put the strut right back on so I can hold the rear hatch up. Then the next step's gonna be to take this carpet off, and we'll go from there. So I moved that strut. All you do, I'm sure most of you have done this before, but there's a little clip right here. Just pop it out. You don't pop it out all the way, just enough to pop the strut out. I'm just using my shoulder to hold the glass up while I did it. Once you pop that clip about 1/4 of an inch out, you'll be able to remove this, slide it off, slide it around the trim, and then just pop it back on so you don't break the glass or scratch anything. The last screw that's in there, when you come around here, that's the last one to take that panel out. Just make your life a lot easier. So now I have this panel out of place, and I've been in here a couple times already. The first time when I went to look at the fuel pump, so what I did was I used a hole saw to cut a hole here. The reason for that is in order to get the fuel pump out, you have to unscrew that screw, which is the vent for the gas tank. I think it's the vent. Yeah, it's the vent for the gas tank. That's actually the fuel line there. So once you disconnect that vent, then you slide that rubber piece off and you can actually pull the fuel pump out. I do have the plastic piece that I cut out, which is the reason that I use the hole saw. And then that way, once I'm done, you can see I JB welded it before, but you could just JB weld it right back on, or whatever epoxy, whatever you choose to put it back on. And then of course it's covered up, and the JB weld is gray, which is why I chose it. So once you pull the carpet back, it comes back fairly easy. Just be careful not to do any permanent crinkles in it. I can get it prop back behind there. Perfect. Then you'll come to this cap. This goes over the fuel pump. There's rivets in here. You can pop them back out, and then once it's done, I just use plastic rivets to put it back in place. So now we're actually ready to pull the fuel pump out. We just have to disconnect a couple of the lines, the electrical connection, the vent, and then we can pop it out. Still have to unscrew that, so I'll do that now. And one thing to note is that clamp in there, I have dropped it in there before, and I've had to fish it out of there. So just be careful not to drop that clamp once you pull the line out, because it's a pain in the butt to get back. So I just removed the clamp before I took the rubber off. The rubber's still there. I don't know if you could see it, but it's still connected. Then I just stuck a wire through there, so it'll stay there the whole time until I'm ready to put the fuel pump back in and connect the hose and all that. But right now I just know it's not going to fall out of place and it won't get stuck in there. So let's continue on. I gotta somehow get the screwdriver in there and pop that hose off of there. Should be fairly simple, but I just need both hands. So I was able to use this flathead and just one side at a time disconnect the vent hose from the vent tube, and so that's disconnected. And just to let you know, I didn't just go ahead and make that hole in there. I tried to do it from out here. I removed the fuel cap and all that, and it's just nearly impossible for me anyway to get it that way. So I just decided to bite the bullet, get that hole in there, and it's much easier. Got easy access to it now. This is not my first time doing this, unfortunately, but now if I need to get back in there in the future, it's fairly simple to do. So honestly, there should be some type of access panel, and maybe there is that I'm missing, but it's just a pain in the butt. I'm assuming you can get in there through the fender well or something, but this was the easiest way that I found at the time. So now it's time. The whole problem behind this is the fuel pressure isn't holding. Normally you would want to release the pressure before you disconnect the regulator hose or the fuel hose from the regulator, but in this case I know there's not any pressure, so I can just pinch these two blue clips, slide that off, and there's no drip. Disconnect the electrical. And then the last thing I have to do is get the vent hose out of there. I just gotta fish it out. It'll take a little bit. And then I can go ahead and remove this lock ring, this tightening ring on the outside. There is a special tool for it. You can rent it from your auto parts store, you can make one. I just use like a piece of wood to not damage the plastic, and then I'll tap on that piece of wood to loosen the ring until I can get it finger tight, finger loose I should say, and then take it the rest of the way off with my hands. So that'll definitely require both hands, so give me a few and I'll be right back. So I got the ring off, chipping wood. Just be careful when you remove it, make sure you got the hose out. And this nipple right here for the fuel regulator, make sure that's just slid out of the way. And then you can just pull it straight up, but do keep in mind that when you pull it up, the bottom of the fuel pump is actually a reservoir, so that's where it pulls the fuel from. So when you pull this out, the bottom's still going to be filled with fuel. So just have rags and a bucket or something to catch that fuel handy. I'm pulling the fuel pump out now, but you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see the level of the fuel. It's there's a lot of fuel in there, so you cannot tip this sideways. Just got to be careful. And I have a brand new baking pan here, so I won't make a huge mess, and of course a rag. So I got the fuel pump all taken apart. I popped the regulator out here, and I just received the new part. To get the regulator out is kind of tricky, but I recommend taking the two halves apart in order to do that. Make sure you disconnect the electrical connector that goes into the bottom of the connection for the fuel pump. Once you do that, you can slide them and kind of separate them. There's 4 of these little clips, but it's pretty flexible material, so it's pretty easy to slide the two apart. Might be a little bit rigid because this fuel line, I think over time it just gets a little rigid and gets frozen in whatever position it's in. But once that's apart, then you can kind of come in through this way, and you can get to all these separate clips, use screwdrivers, pins, whatever it is to get them apart. There's way too many of them to do with just your hands, so you definitely need some other tools. I used little cotter pins from another tip. Somebody else was able to pull it out and just one screwdriver at a time, slip the cotter pin in, screwdriver to pry this one up, slipped in a cotter pin, one at a time until I got all the way around, and then once you do that, the fuel regulator just slips right out. So the next step is to disconnect this hose here. Now there's 2 ways to do it, but first I want to see the part that actually came in. We just arrived. I already know that there's some unnecessary parts in here, but I got them anyway, and let's see what we got. So this is who I got them through, and I saw them online, and luckily they gave me a nice beer koozie so I can cool off from this 100-degree weather. This is the magical regulator, and it should be the same, 55 psi. Only difference is the top is wider, so it's going to overlay the part that actually tightened. It's going to be on top of it, so it's going to definitely be a little tricky to get in there, but I think I can figure out a way. And then he said that I might need this part here. I'm actually not going to. I may need one of these clips just to get the new hose on, but I guess some of the fuel pumps have this brass piece threaded in. And so if that's the case, then you can just use this brass piece. I was charged, I think, like $10 for the hose, $10 for the brass piece, so I probably could have saved $20 there. But I didn't know, he didn't know, I didn't have the pump out at the time, so I figured better safe than sorry. And once I had it out, I wanted to make sure I got the job done anyway. So just something to keep in mind if you do this on your fuel pump. If you want to save a couple bucks, you may or may not need this extra piece. You'll definitely need at least one of the clips though. So now that I know what I got here, take this protective part off. Okay, perfect. So there's actually, so this little nipple here, let me focus. So this nipple here is going to slide right into that black hose. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to cut this hose because I can't use this part that's already been clipped anyway. It's already been deformed, it's been on there forever, it's not going to be flexible. So I'm going to try to reuse this same hose and just clip it right there and then slip this in through the top, of course, and hopefully I can get the clamp on there and we'll just kind of go from there. So definitely need 2 hands again, so give me a few and I'll come back hopefully successful. And just so you could see the comparison between the 2 fuel regulators, one is significantly larger on the top than the other, but they're both 55 psi. It's just a different size at the top, so I'll need to figure out how to get that ring around it. I was debating to put the ring on first, but I think I can squeeze it, and when I can squeeze the ring to screw down the fuel pump on. I can screw that down after the fact. Alright, so two things here. One, make sure you got this ring on before you put the fuel regulator on. It is a pretty tight fit, but also you will need, I'm not sure what the hell this tool is called. Nipix, I think they're ear clamps. I don't know. I got this tool from Amazon for like one reason a long time ago, and turns out I actually need it for this. So just make sure you at least have the tools available. And then that's it. So now I can clip that on, and the fuel pump should be ready to put back in. So I got everything put back together, got the pump in, it's locked into place, or the regulator in, it's locked into place. You can already see that there might be one issue here. I tried twisting this, I don't want to break it. I know it can twist. This looks like some kind of vent. Some kind of vent for the fuel tank. Anyway, maybe a vapor. Yeah, I think that's maybe what it is. It's for the fuel vapors. Anyway, I wasn't able to twist it easily, but I also have this electrical connector that's in the way as well. So I think I can sneak that hose, that little rubber tube by, and I don't think I should have any issues. I did put this ring on before I locked the regulator into place. So you can still get it on and off right now, but it's definitely more tricky. I recommend connecting the regulator to the fuel line, and then after that just leave the regulator loose. Don't actually snap it into place. Put the ring on first and then put the regulator snapped into place. At least that's what I did. It seemed to work fine for me. Also make sure you have your electrical connection set on the bottom, and once you have that done, now we're ready to put this thing back in the car. All right, let's do it. All right, so I got everything in. It is not easy to get in there with the rubber gasket, rubber O-ring, whatever you want to call it, that goes underneath the ring. Don't forget to take this blue clip off. This is for the fuel. You won't forget once you try to put the fuel line on, because it won't stay on. But I'm going to put this on, connect the fuel line, tighten the ring up, and I'm going to give it a start after that just to see how it responds. So I just gave it some primes, started it up, and made sure everything functioned as usual. I turned it off and then just gave it a couple of seconds to start back up, and it seemed to start back up fine. But I'm gonna let it sit. I'm gonna let that. Hopefully it doesn't leak back. But if it was a leak back scenario and the regulator wasn't working, I'm gonna double check that. And I'm also going to connect the fuel pressure gauge and make sure we're getting 55. Make sure everything's good there. But while I'm waiting, I'm pretty confident, so I'm gonna go ahead and connect the vent hose. I'm not going to rivet everything back up yet, but I just want to give it 5 minutes to settle in, and then I'll try starting it right back up. I'll record this time when I start it back up, so it'll be a fresh start where the fuel should have leaked back and hopefully doesn't. So give me a second, be right back. Alright, so I got everything put back together. It's been probably 15-20 minutes since I started it up, so that fuel should have been leaked back down. When I had it before, it dropped pretty much immediately, so it should be all good. Let's see if it starts back up. Moment of truth. I gotta sneak in here. Something to keep in mind, I do still have the timer relay. I can't remember what form it was on, but there's a relay that you can put in to keep your fuel pump running for longer than the half second that it usually does. So that's still in place. I don't see any harm in leaving it in place, so I'm actually going to leave it. I may disable it one day, but it should be to the point now that I actually don't need it. So I'm just going to turn the key, fuel pump will run, I'm going to start it right up. Success. Cold, so that idle should come back down, but everything looks good. Alright, so car's been sitting for about 20 minutes. I know it has fuel pressure because I just connected the fuel gauge and it leaked a little bit, and it still has, what is that, around 36 pounds, inches, I don't know, pounds, inch, I don't know, can't remember what that's reading. Anyway, the gauge is around 36, so let's start it up. I kind of want to see where it is when it runs. So, hopefully I got that on there tight enough, but here we go. Right at 60. That gauge might not be entirely accurate, but I am good with that. Nothing going on in here. The idle just came down, so I'm happy with it. So I'm going to leave it there while I finish up a chat, but I'll put the details of where I got the regulator and all that in the description. The total cost with the regulator, the hose, and the 2 clamps, as well as the adapter that I didn't need, the hose I didn't need as well. The total cost was $146 shipped, I believe. And so if you subtract the $20 for the parts that I didn't need, you'll spend closer to $130, a little under 130 shipped, depending on where you live. So anyway, I'm happy with it. That annoying fuel pump issue, I know no one can find the regulators. So luckily there's a way that we can fix it by just using a slightly different regulator, and it's completely factory. You don't have to, or it works just as factory, and you don't have to worry about making any permanent modifications. Alright guys, thanks for watching.